Hello, back on track with Tarn House today. Vocals have arrived. Yay! There they are. In all of their magnificent glory. Pauline's really done a good job on this. She always does a good job, but I'm particularly pleased with these. That's the main thing to talk about. Some guitar work being done, some hidden guitar work that we'll talk about after the song, and a tiny, tiny little bit of keyboards that's hardly worth mentioning. Let's get on with it.
There's a shelter from the storm, feels like home, fair of kind, far beyond the northern sky, fells and falls hold their prize. Cloudless days are longer in your arms, down on the mountainside. Sometimes have to wonder how or why your tender spell survives. All at once, pull the memories down, splashing loud on rock and bow. Here's a scene, copper's gone, fearless and free, silly hound. Here's a scene and a delicate one, toddling on, all fall down. Cloudless days are longer in your arms, down on the mountainside. Skimming low, cross the water, skipping over trails of wonder. Sailing away.
Okay, vocals first. I've done a little bit of processing on them, but I try to keep mostly out of the way at this stage of a song because it's still in construction. You know, all of the notes aren't there yet. But I think it's always a fine balance, trying to find this fine balance between not over engineering, you know, getting carried away with pan settings and volume automation and stuff that should really be reserved right for the end of the song, because when new stuff comes in, it's going to throw all of that completely out. But you do want the thing to sound fundamentally right. So I have, as you can see, done a little bit of work on the vocals.
There's a shelter from the storm, feels like home, fair of kind.
I am very lucky having access to a voice like this.
Far beyond the northern sky, fells and falls hold their prize.
I've not used this solid dynamics before.
Cloudless days are longer in your arms, down on the mountainside.
I'll bring it in halfway through this one.
Sometimes have to wonder how or why your tender spell survives.
There is a little bit of a volume boost, but it is also just enriching the sound as well. It's really, really nice. Apparently, it's an SSL XR618 Dynamics compressor. As if you didn't know that. But whatever it is, it sounds damned fine. So I'm just in the habit at the moment, on an idle whim, of picking new VSTs each time. I want to do a particular thing. I wanted to add some compression to the voice. Chose this module and really quickly found a setting that was very nice. That's not so true of the reverb, which I don't have any randomness about at all. I just picked the Pro R because it's absolutely bloody marvellous. So this is just adding, obviously, that extra little bit of dimension.
There's a shelter from the storm, feels like home, fair of kind.
That's lovely, just really subtle reverb. Just sat in the background, just making everything slightly better. I didn't really want a big, booming, cavernous reverb on this one. So that's the vocals pretty much nailed first time. Whether and how we deal with harmonies or secondary lines, I don't know. I've not given that any thought yet. My next thought, let's deal with this tiny little keyboard line. It's just absolutely nothing, but those cute little notes that pop in.
There's a shelter from the storm, feels like
really nice.
home, fair.
So simple. I've just recently finished a mammoth Omnisphere session, and it seemed mean to start trying to find VST sounds anywhere else other than Omnisphere. So I just found this. As with Omnisphere, everything it does is of the very best quality. So I was going to find something very nice very quickly, and that's what we came up with. Just for a little thing. It might not make an appearance anywhere else in the song, who knows. Then we've got this guitar line got doubled. So this was previously a single guitar line, kind of surviving on its own. I had two melody lines or two primary guitar sounds in, and it was always intended to be panned left and right. It's one of the few occasions when this early in the mix I've actually done it, because it's so obvious that wants to be done. And similarly with these two guitar sounds here, this is one line that I've completely replicated, just exactly replicated, and then used different EQs to separate the two sounds out. If you played exactly the same thing on both sides, it would just be a louder version of exactly the same thing. But by just assigning different frequency ranges, different responsibilities to these two channels, we get quite a nice effect. So on the left-hand side, sounds like that. And then on the right-hand side, got this one, which I'll bring in. There. So that's a fuller sound. And that's a bit thinner, more trebly. But together they add a really nice dimension to the sound that the single track on its own, Pan Central, wasn't giving me this kind of effect. So I'm really happy with that. So this is an Ep.5 EQ, and this is a Trident A-range preamp and EQ. It's nice to place names to faces. You can go and look these things up on the internet and see what the original piece of kit looked like and how much one of these things would cost you if you attempted or were able to acquire one. It's all very nice. Then we've got my very first pass, I literally recorded this afternoon, and this is the very first pass of something that I'm thinking will go in the solo slot. Now, as I say, don't judge me. This is super, super raw. Just kind of tracing scales, really, which is fairly tricky. Because there are quite a few changes. So what we've got here is basically a load of chords being played. So the guitar really describes what the underlying scales are supposed to be, or at least advises. We've got E flat major, D major, C major for the first part repeated, and then B flat to A minor, B flat to A minor. None of those chords don't exist in any single scale. You're not going to get that job done with a single scale. Now, I've been doing a lot of reading on harmony and music theory in the past few weeks, for the first time in my life, being genuinely interested in the subject. It doesn't feel like a chore, and I am learning amazing stuff. And I'm learning how scales can basically be inferred from the chords that underlie them. So if I'm playing an E flat, I can play any scale in which E flat lives, and I've picked C minor. And then you move to the D major and decide what scale are you going to be in there. Well, I could play in the scale of D major if I wanted to. And so, as the solo's going on, I'm literally just modulating to the new scale. If I'm playing a C major chord, I'll switch to C major, and then I go back to the E flat. But it doesn't feel like I'm in E flat. It feels more like I'm in C minor, so I play that scale. And I've been reading about avoid notes and loads of interesting subjects that I'm kind of itching to talk about in a different environment. But this solo is my first attempt to say, well, this is the chord that's underlying, so what scale am I going to play over the top, and then decide what the answer to that question is going to be, and then eventually knit all of those parts together to make one consistent whole. So that was so simple because I'm more or less just following the scales. Here I'd already chosen that I was going to be in a C minor, so I'm just playing a few notes out of C minor, and then for half a bar, just a little bit of a rundown that's in D major, and it sounds lovely just mixing these scales together. It's such a simple concept, but really, really gorgeous. So that will be occupying a little bit of my time over the next week or so, I would imagine, just having fun playing with that. Quite like that guitar sound as well, just some stock preset that came out of the GT. Sounds pretty awesome. But it's a real song now. It's, Pinocchio's turned into a real boy. And from this point onwards, I've now got that structure that I can start confidently laying stuff down on top of and know that I'm not going to go too far wrong, because that underlying, the bass and the guitars and the vocals together are just absolutely gluing everything together. I'm really, really pleased with it. That's this episode done. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing, hit notifications. You'll catch me for the next episode. Hope to see you then.